And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome here as we continue on Speed Weeks here in the qualifying for the 12th annual Snickers Cup Series Great American Race Daytona 500. Up to this point, we have determined 29 drivers that are going to be in the hunt for this season's Daytona 500 victory. However, we still have to find out what other 13 drivers will be in the Great American Race and what drivers will be left with that will race in the secondary race, the Daytona 250. Up to this point, these are the drivers that are locked into the Great American Race. James Silverfox, Dylan Poteet, Ryan Cooper, Ty Dent, Sean Galligan, John Cedino, James Qualls, Charles Sanford, Gene Sanford, Austin LaPlante, Jessica Shelton, Dougie Shears, Logan Wilson, Jacob Lawler, Levi McIntyre, Oriole Pollard, Chris Dollerton, Trent Dunham, P.Q. London. Those drivers made it into the 500 grid by being a former champion or by being a former Daytona 500 winner. And then we had 10 drivers in our two group qualifying sessions qualified their way into the Great American Race. Emmett Juckin, Ian Dutta, James Qualls, Tim Walsh, Zach Rogers, Nicholas Romero, Zachary Fitzwater, William Brock, Michael Norman, and Carson Gum. Those drivers will all start in the 500 regardless of what takes place here in these two Budweiser duels. However, 7 drivers will race their way into the 500 in this first Budweiser duel. 6 of them will race their way into the 500 in the final slots in Budweiser Duel number 2. How did I determine which one had 7, which one had 6? With candy canes. Don't ask. Anyway, we are going to be getting ready here to not only determine who makes the Great American Race, but this race will also determine who will be starting up on the front row for the Daytona 500. Here in Duel number 1, they are battling for the pole position on the inside of the front row. In Duel number 2, they are battling for the outside of the front row. So, we are guaranteed to have a pole sitter for the Great American Race in this event. Let's get the command.
Drivers, start your engine!
Take a look at your starting lineup here. Johnny Gardner, Chris Dowd, Tyler Markle, Joseph Srigley, all the way down to 6th place Tristan Folks. They are not locked into the 500 grid. Lawler and Dent are. RJ Bishop, he has to race his way in. Ryan Cooper, Michael Norman, they are both locked in now. Lyndon Wright, Joshua Michaels, Andrews, Caesar, Pollard, Mongold, Cole, Powers, all the way down. They have to race their way in. McLeod is locked in. Dollerton and Dunham are locked in. William Brock is locked in. As you look further down, let's actually go to our leader as well, as they're pacing. Continuing from Brock, also locked in. Dougie Shears in the 88. Nicholas Romero, Carson Gum, the 84 and the 68. Zachary Fitzwater in the 28 is also locked in, as well as P.Q. London. But everybody else is battling for 7 spots in the Great American Race. Now, how it's going to be determined is the drivers that are locked in, they're basically not going to count. It's going to come down to the top 7 drivers as far as finishing. The top 7 highest drivers will be in the Great American Race. This time, we are not keeping track of the fastest lap. That was in the time qualifying session. Now we're keeping track of track position. Now, when these first group of drivers came out in group qualifying, they went 4 wide early on, and a lot of drivers were wrecked and had to go to backup machines and failed to make the 500 via speed because of it. Let's see if maybe these drivers have learned their lesson and we'll get some nice clean racing here. It will be 20 laps. Caution flags are on. Alright. Also keep in mind, too, drivers that are locked into the 500, if they do wreck, they're going to have to go to backup cars and they'll start at the rear for the Great American Race. They're still locked in, but they will not get good starting track position for the 500. Here we go, though. Johnny Gardner and Chris Dowd will get us underway. Green flag's out. What 7 drivers will get the final 7 spots in this group into the Great American Race? The winner of this race will start on the pole for the Daytona 500. How would it be for a driver that's not yet locked into the 500 to not only make the Great American Race, but start on the pole? That is possible to happen in this event. Gardner leads the field off turn 2. Tyler Markle right behind him. Now looks low. Contingency down low, and Jonathan Zorling, Jacob Lawler. They're trying to fight their way up there. RJ Bishop there as well. Michael Norman, Joshua Michaels. And Zorling now out in front. you got to wonder what kind of maybe alliances drivers that are already locked in were offered by drivers that are not locked in. In other words, hey, you push me to the front here, I'll help you in the 500. You got to think some wheeling and dealing like that was taking place. Zorlin for Robbie Gordon Motorsports out in front. Michael Norman working down low with Joshua Michaels. Ty Dent there as well. Austin Mongold, and I believe that's the 94 of Callum Wood. Fifth on that inside line with the 32 of Juan Hernandez there as well. Coming off of 4, everybody still is in this lead pack. So everybody's still in the thick of it. Lap 2 completed, lap 3 goes on the board. Zorlin continues to lead. Michael Norman, along with Jacob Lawler, both kind of pushed him there. Looked like Norman was trying to keep him out in front there. Now Ty Dent's going for the top position. Ty Dent, he's already locked into the 500. He wants to start on the pole position. That's what he's worried about right now. Look right there behind Juan Hernandez, that 9 car of Matthew Dallio. He was not able to qualify into the 500 via the speed qualifying session. But like I've said all weekend long, that 9 car has been to victory lane in the Snickers Cup Series Daytona 500 3 times, including last season with James Silverfox. Matthew Dallio trying to qualify his way in right now. If the race were to end, he would be in, along with Seth Cole and Juan Hernandez. Joshua Michaels would be in. I think Callum Wood would have also made his way in, along with Jonathan Zorlin, but there's still a long ways to go in this duel race. You see Trent Dunham pushing Chris Dollerton, being pushed by William Brock, being pushed by Dougie Shears. Those 4 drivers are all locked into the 500 already. Speaking of 4, Dunham, please don't go 4 wide. Let Dollerton, and he didn't, he spins him right up in front of the field. Many cars involved, Brock involved, Michael Norman is in it, and they're all piling in. Matt McIntyre, RJ Bishop, Pichu London. There's the 82 of Matt McIntyre. Julio Caesar is involved. Carson Gum, Norman, Elijah Gordon, James McLeod, all wrecked here after Chris Dollerton and Trent Dunham get together and spin up in front of the field. A number of those drivers already have locked themselves into the 500, but may be backup car bound. The heartbreak, though, is a number of them were not locked into the 500 yet, and that shot of making the Great American Race may have just been grasped out of their hands. And how ironic, it's a wreck that takes place starting with 2 drivers already locked into the 500 grid. Ty Dent is your leader on our first caution of the day. The big one strikes early in Budweiser Duel number 1. Let's take a look at a replay in depth of what happened and the drivers that were involved. I had a bad feeling about this when I saw the 43 kind of move up. He knew Trent Dunham was there. He tried to give him the room, and I don't know if Trent was trying to let Chris back in or not. He might have tried to let Chris back in, but Chris was going to force his way in nonetheless because he knew it was a bad situation. Off the nose of Trent Dunham. There you see William Brock just get clipped. 55 of Joseph Srigley was involved. Oh man, look at Tyler Markle go right up the track, right into Michael Norman. Contact there between Ryan Cooper and RJ Bishop sent Bishop up the track into Brock as everybody scatters to the inside. And then here's the pile up there. There's the 34 car involved of John Andrews. Didn't see that he was in it. McLeod, Carson Gum, Nicholas Romero, Matt McIntyre, Pichu London, Elijah Gordon. JT Bryant was caught up behind this along with Rohit Vidarva. Don't know if those 2 stopped in time. They may not have hit anybody. Same for the 12 of Zach Flickinger there on the outside line. But there's Michael Norman in the 3. You look here at drivers that are locked in. London, Gum, McLeod, Dunham, Norman. They're all locked into the 500 and they find themselves wrecked. RJ Bishop, another bit of contact between him and Matt McIntyre. Boy. There you see Romero with his damage on the 84. He's locked in the 500, but he may be going to a backup car. Chloe Baker gets through it very nicely. A lot of drivers did a good job getting through that wreck. Saw Dowd and Gardner and Up here, the cars of Romero, Joseph Romero, Stephen Pollard, the third, Blaine Keys, Lyndon Wright, all found the high side to get around. So we could have had a lot more drivers involved than we did. And if I'm counting up the wounded race cars, there's 1, 2, 3, potentially 4 or 5 drivers that are not locked into the 500 that were involved in this. Just about everybody else was already locked into the 500 grid. So it's going to produce more backup cars than DNQers, I would think, but still a heartbreak for those that were not yet locked into the 500 getting involved in this. Definitely could have probably been avoided, but tight spot up at the front of the field. We're under caution. Let's go back to green, see who's going to be left to finish this thing out. Pace car is peeled off. We're ready to go back racing. Ty Dent gets us back underway. Seth Cole there in second. He would be the highest of the non-qualifiers so far to get in. Matter of fact, if we look at our top 10, it would be Seth Cole, Callum Wood, Matthew Dalio, Juan Hernandez, Joshua Michaels, Austin Mongold, and Jonathan Zorlin, who would have made it in if the race had ended just then under the caution. Drivers out of the race. Surprisingly, only 2 of them, but those 2 drivers were ones that had to qualify into the 500 via this race. Julio Cesar and Tyler Markle will not take part in the Daytona 500. They will have to race instead in the Daytona 250. I'm surprised after all that only 2 drivers were out of the race. Back here is a very important battle. Joseph Srigley trying to reel in Jonathan Zorlin. Zorlin right now has the final transfer spot, and Srigley wants it. Then behind him, you got Ryan Cooper, you got Dougie Shears, and Zachary Fitzwater. Those 3 are already locked into the 500. The next competition for trying to get the transfer spot is right here, and that is the Zach Austin machine, the number 10, and then Davey Johnson in the 77. But they got to catch up first to the 55. The 55 seems to be losing some touch with the 7 car, but Seth Cole got kicked to the high side, and maybe that will allow Joseph Srigley to reel back in this front group. Whoa! He nearly got turned there by Ryan Cooper. Good run for Cooper there in 10th place, and there you see the 34 return to the track. He's a lap down. John Andrews, his hopes may be gone now as he'll fall a lap down to the leaders. We're getting close to the halfway point. Right now, Seth Cole is in the last transfer spot as he just got bypassed by Jonathan Zorling. The car he's got to worry about now is that 55 of Srigley. He's really the one that's going to maybe spoil the party for somebody up in this lead group, because right now it's looking good for those guys. And now Zorlin gets kicked back up. As these guys continue to battle amongst themselves, it's going to allow Srigley to reel them in. Zach Austin's a long ways back. If this thing continues green, it's really going to come down to whether Srigley can pass one of these other drivers up here. Seth Cole or Joshua Michaels, Zorlin, Mongold, Dalio, Callum Wood, or Juan Hernandez. Speaking of Callum Wood, he's going for the lead. He not only wants to make the Daytona 500, he wants to start on the pole for the Daytona 500. First challenge Ty Dent's actually gotten since he got out to the front. The one thing I'm wondering about Joseph Srigley is we saw that he got damaged from that wreck earlier on. Oh, no. Oh, I thought they were going to go 4 wide for a moment there. That would have been 4 drivers that right now sitting good to make the 500 that almost went 4 wide. But going back to Srigley, we saw he got some damage earlier on. I think he got hit by William Brock or Chris Dollerton, somebody, when they came back up the track, got hit in the driver's side door. You can actually still see the damage visibly on the left side of his machine. That might be killing his speed. Because you saw how quickly Ryan Cooper caught up to these guys after he got around him, and now it appears that he may be holding up Dougie Shears. So Srigley, he's still in a good spot, but he's got to hope something goes wrong for one of these top 7 drivers right now in the transfer spot. As a matter of fact, something may go his way in the form of Jonathan Zorling, who appears to maybe be losing the draft here. Well, maybe not. I think he may still be in the draft. He'll definitely still be in the draft if the 32 comes down in front of him, as Juan Hernandez gets kicked up there to the high side. Dougie Shears has not gotten around Srigley. Watch here. Let's see if Dougie Shears pulls away from Srigley. This will give us an idea of whether Srigley is damaged or not, and that's causing him to be off the pace. Caution now? Oh no, I guess isn't. Well, now, yeah, they're slowing. Are they slowing down? Oh no, they are slowing down, but that's because they came up on a slower machine of R.J. Bishop. And that puts Shrigley right back into it. And here comes Mason Powers, along with Zach Austin and company. This changes up a lot as they caught up to a slower car of R.J. Bishop. Oh boy. Zorlin may be in a bad spot. I think he just lost the transfer spot. He did. Zorlin's now back. He's the 8th driver out of the DNQ drivers now. Shrigley, that just helped him out. He's now up in the final transfer position. I think. Or did somebody else fall even further back? No, I think he's the last car. Let's look at this real quick. When they crossed the line... Uh-oh, more cars here for the leader to have to contend with. Got Trent Dunham, Carson Gum, Pichu London, and Matt McIntyre. Careful. Right now it's Michaels, Callum Wood, Mongold, Seth Cole, Matthew Dalio, Juan Hernandez, and Joseph Shrigley. That is your transfer drivers. But that could change as they're trying to make their way through. This group are the leaders, Ty Dent, Joshua Michaels. And I think that second group's going to reel them in. Oh man, this is not good. Not good at all. Oh, I don't like the situation at all. I don't like this. I do not like this. Nope, nope, nope. Shrigley's now caught up, and watch out for that second group. Here comes Austin. Here comes Zorlin. Powers. Trying to reel in, try and get something. Ty Dent's already cleared all this menagerie. Michaels now goes through. Seth Cole through. Hernandez through. Dalio gets through. Mongold, Austin, Wood, Zorlin. They're battling for the transfer spot now. Shrigley, I think, just got kicked out. And now Joseph Romero's up there in the 96. And here comes Davey Johnson in the 77. Looking like it's going to maybe be Ty Dent's race to lose. Although he's all by his lonesome, and this group is all together. Seth Cole, Hernandez, Michaels, and Dalio. This is looking really good for them to be able to make it. That's the top 4 for the transfer spots. Then you got Mongold. He's the 5th one. 6th one is Zorlin. And now the battle is for the 7th one. That is Callum Wood, but he's got Johnny Gardner on his back bumper. This is a battle for the transfer spot. Gardner and Wood, and here comes more. Flickinger, Johnson's there. Tristan Folks is there. And I think it's Davey Johnson now who would move into the 7th position. With help from Flickinger. This is the battle for the transfer spot right here, the final transfer spot. Johnson, Gardner, Wood, Flickinger, and Folks are all battling for it. Right now, it is Davey Johnson holding the 7th and final transfer spot. Oh, trouble! Dalio just got turned! Just got turned to the infield. Where did he go? There's Michaels. He was the other one. Oh, he's going to come back up track. Oh, Dalio just got dumped. And the car is smoking. Dalio, who had a perfect opportunity to make the 500, just got flat taken out. Did that bring out a caution? It didn't. And that changes up everything. Dalio's in danger of missing the 500 now. Ty Dent still leads. He's got Juan Hernandez behind him. Hernandez right now would be the one to transfer in, highest of the DNQers. Seth Cole is the 2nd. Mongold the 3rd. The 4th is Zorlin. The 5th now would be Davey Johnson. 6th one would be Michaels, and 7th would be Gardner, who's now battling with Flickinger. He's held up behind Flickinger. Flickinger now puts himself in the transfer spot. Flickinger is now in the transfer spot. And Folks is trying to take it from him. Zach Austin there as well. Johnny Gardner now gets back to the inside line. But it's now Flickinger in the final transfer spot. And whoa, I thought I heard some scraping. There is Dalio. That is a tough break for the 9. Up in the top 5, and he got taken out, I guess, by Joshua Michaels, who looks like he still may transfer in. Don't know. Look at Callum Wood back there. He was in a transfer spot. Not anymore. Uh-oh, slow cars. And Davey Johnson gets held up. So too does Tristan Folks. Now Zach Austin, Zach Flickinger, they're on the inside line trying to take a transfer position. Oh, McLeod gets right there, they go! Dougie Shears, Zorlin, Flickinger, Austin collected as Michaels goes through the grass. That has to be a caution. I'm not seeing any caution lights. No, we're still green. How in the world are we still green? Somehow we're still green. I don't know how. That should have been a caution flag. Look out! Slow car of R.J. Bishop nearly took out Juan Hernandez. Seth Cole now to the inside. Ty Dent trying to start on the pole for the Great American Race. 2 more laps to go. Now who's got the transfer spot is a big question. Seth Cole, he's first. Hernandez second. Mongold third. Fourth now Mason Powers. Fifth place Johnson. 6th place Gardner. 7th place Callum Wood battling with Strigley. Callum Wood, Strigley, Folks, and Benjamin Miles. Those are the ones that are going to battle for the final transfer spot. Maybe Chris Dowd as well. And Gardner now slips up. So too does Davey Johnson. Move Callum Wood into the transfer position. And now also Joseph Strigley trying to take the spot. White flag displayed already for Ty Dent. He will more than likely start on the pole for the 500, but we're watching this battle for the transfer spot. Right now, Cole is in, Hernandez is in, Mongold is in, Mason Powers, Callum Wood, Davey Johnson. It's between Strigley and Gardner for the final transfer position. Gardner jumps up high. Where's Folks or Miles or Dowd going to be able to go? Can anyone make a move here in the closing stage as Mason Powers gets kicked up high? Coming off turn 4 for the final time, it's going to be between Strigley down low, Gardner up high for the final transfer spot into the Great American Race. Who is it going to be? Come into the line. Gardner with the run up high, but here comes Strigley down low at the stripe. A nose for Joseph Strigley. Captures him the final transfer spot into the Daytona 500. Gardner came up a splitter short. Holy cow. Ty Dent wins the race. That's not the big story, even though he will start on the pole for the 500. Your transfer drivers, your 7 transfer drivers, are going to be Juan Hernandez, Seth Cole, Austin Mongold, Callum Wood, Mason Powers, Davey Johnson, and Joseph Strigley. Race is complete. Let's look at the finishing results. How close was that between those two? About maybe 6 1/1000ths of a second between Strigley and Gardner for the final transfer spot. Gardner, by a splitter, is forced to have to partake in the Daytona 250, misses out on the Great American Race, as do Tristan Folks, Benjamin Miles, Chris Dowd, Joseph Romero, JT Bryant, Lyndon Wright, Elijah Gordon, Stephen Pollard III, Zach Austin, Jonathan Zorlin, Chloe Baker, Blaine Keys, Rohe Vidaravu, Zach Flickinger, Joshua Michaels finishes a lap down. He'll be missing the 500. Along with John Andrews, Matt McIntyre, R.J. Bishop, Matthew Dalio. That's a heartbreak for him. And also Julio Cesar and Tyler Markle. They will all miss the Great American Race. Instead, they will race in the 50-lap event, the Daytona 250. But man, Ty Dent, congrats to him. He'll start on the pole for the Great American Race. And as I said, transferring in, the 7 drivers to transfer into the Great American Race are Juan Hernandez, Seth Cole, Austin Mongold, Callum Wood, Mason Powers, Davey Johnson, and Joseph Strigley. Stay tuned, folks. This ain't over. We still got a second duel to go, where 6 drivers will get the final 6 spots in the Great American Race. Who will they be? Will it be as exciting as this one was? I certainly hope so. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back here as we're about to get the command to fire him up for the second Budweiser duel.
Drivers, start your engines!
42 drivers, many of them fighting for 6 transfer spots into the Great American Race. Sam Rogers, Marty Johnson, your front row, both are not locked into the Daytona 500 yet. Neither is Ian Siegel in 4th. Citadino and Qualls, they are locked in. The drivers that are locked in at this point, that are in this group of cars are Citadino, Qualls, James Silverfox, Zach Rogers, Charles Sanford, Austin LaPlante, Sean Galligan, Ian Dutta, Levi McIntyre, Logan Wilson, Jessica Shelton, Emmett Juckin, Dylan Poteet, Gene Sanford, Oreo Pollard, and Tim Walsh. Those are the only drivers so far that are locked into the Great American Race. 6 drivers will transfer their way into the Daytona 500 here. As we did in the first Budweiser duel, we'll be keeping track of the top 6 that would be transferring in, but mostly focusing on that 6th driver to see who may be around to try and challenge for the final transfer spot into the Great American Race. 20 laps again, caution flags are on, just like in the first one. A lot of big names in this race, just like in the Budweiser Duel number 1, that could end up missing out on racing in the Daytona 500. DJ Curtis, Anthony McCrory, Kyle Matthews, Nathan Hudson. They may not be taking part in this 12th annual Great American Race. They may have to race instead in the Daytona 250. The Daytona 250 will be 50 laps. The Daytona 500, as it has been for the last 3 seasons or so, will be 100 laps. Here we go, though. Who are going to be the final 6 drivers to qualify their way into the Great American Race Daytona 500? Who's going to start on the outside of the front row for the Great American Race? The winner of this event, that's who. And we're going to find out who's going to be. 20 laps await us. Rogers and whoever, get us underway. For some reason, I just went blank. Marty Johnson. I was thinking last name of Murphy. Don't ask me why. It was lap 5 when the caution came out in the first Budweiser duel. Let's see if these drivers can keep it together a little bit longer, as things kind of get spread out through turns 1 and 2. Drivers picking their lines here. Wow, big lag spike there. I apologize. I don't know why that is. Sam Rogers getting help there from John Citadino. Citadino helping to keep him out in front, as drivers picking their partners here. It's like a dance. You got to find someone to dance with. For sure, just like before in the speed qualifying, you got to think there was some wheeling and dealing going on with a driver that's not locked in the 500 saying to a driver that was locked in the 500, hey, if you work with me to get into this race, I'll work with you to get you up to the front to start on the outside of the front row, or I'll work with you once we get to the 500. Look at Austin LaPlante splitting down low 3 wide. He was the fastest car in the Group 2 speed qualifying session, even though he's already locked into the Daytona 500. And now he's going to go to the front, try and maybe make it a Hendrick Motorsports 1-2 for the start of the Daytona 500, as his teammate Ty Dent has already taken the pole position. Right now, Richard Johnson would be the transfer driver. Kian Eddington, Cody Lamas, and then it would be Eric Burton, Sam Rogers, Isaac Canepa, and Carson Scott. Alex Tanker right now on the outside looking in. Let's jump back to that 09 machine. Well, he's going underneath both the 81 and the 95, which means he moves very well into a transfer spot. Right behind him, a couple of other drivers trying to follow him there. The 78 car of Marco Martinez and the 46 of Paul Goldberg. Or Philip Goldberg, I'm sorry. Still trying to get used to names here. A lot of new names in this field. See Jessica Shelton kind of trailing the tail end of the field there. I think she's thinking the same thing I'm thinking, that it can't last this long before someone makes a wrong move and there's going to be a big wreck. Aaron Henderson moving to the inside line now underneath of Carson Scott, who I think right now holds the final transfer position. Not certain. I can confirm that in just a moment. Let's see. Got Richard Johnson, Cody Lamas, both working together. Right now they're 1 and 2. Kian Eddington is 3. Philip Goldberg is 4. Marco Martinez 5. 6 is Aaron Henderson. 7 would be, I think, Benny Watson. He is. And he just held off John Arndt there. So right now, and he's going to go by Aaron Henderson. So now Aaron Henderson falls back into that 7th spot. Wait. No, there are only 6 transfer spots, though, in this one. My apologies. Final transfer spot would actually be, I believe, right there, Marco Martinez. Maybe Johnson, Lamas, Eddington, Goldberg. No, wait, I'm right, aren't I? Johnson, Cody Lamas, that's 1, 2. Eddington is 3. Goldberg is 4. 5 would be Watson now, and 6 would be Martinez. He's the final transfer driver. The driver he's got to worry about now is the 42 of Kyle Matthews, who's quickly coming up the inside line. And Matthews will pass him. So now Kyle Matthews moves in. Marco Martinez is now out at this point. And now he'll pass Kian Eddington, who now is going to get passed by Marty Johnson and Marco Martinez 3 wide. Eddington is now out. Marty Johnson is now in. Still a long ways to go. Not even halfway through this race, and we still have the possibility of the big one looming. Up front, Austin LaPlante. In front, Cody Lamas in second. He's in a good spot right now. Then you got Gene Sanford and Dylan Pote, 2 drivers already locked into the Great American Race. And then they're 3 wide back here with last year's winner of the 500, James Silverfox. You got Kyle Matthews, Richard Johnson, Philip Goldberg, Benny Watson, Marty Johnson, Oriel Pollard in this mix, and now here comes John Arndt. And Cody Lamas gets kicked up to the high side. Richard Johnson going to go by him. Now Richard Johnson goes back to the first transfer spot. Lamas back to second one. Then it's Marty Johnson, the third one. The fourth one is Matthews. The fifth one, Goldberg, and Arndt's the sixth one. But here comes Benny Watson down low to take that spot from Goldberg. Aaron Henderson, Sam Rogers, they're there as well, along with Marco Martinez. And there's Nathan Hudson now, the Mercedes-Benz, trying to get up here. His teammate James Qualls is already locked into the 500 field after making it via the speed qualifying. Hudson wants to be able to join his Anime Racing Team teammate. Things really getting shuffled up here. It's hard to keep track. There's a battle for the lead. Dylan Poteet will take the spot away from Austin LaPlante. And here comes Richard Johnson. At the line, we'll tell you who were the transfer spots at the line, but they're changing just about every 500 feet. Right now it'd be Richard Johnson, John Arndt, Marty Johnson, then Benny Watson, Cody Lamas, Aaron Henderson would be your top 6 at the line. That can change. I'm seeing some other drivers back there. I see Nathan Hudson, Dylan Schwallenberg, and Bob Jones now making their presence felt here up in the lead pack. Alex Tanker is there. Kian Eddington is back. And Ian Siegel's starting to come up here as well. A number of drivers have lost the draft, or lost this lead group, and a number of them are drivers that need to qualify their way in. Jeffrey Finguy in the 28, Ben Braley, Isaac Canepa. You got Eric Burton back here, Carson Scott. And then further back, you've got O'Neill Baldwin and DJ Curtis, Dylan Young, Clint Spillman in the 23, Anthony McCrory back here. They gotta hope that a wreck happens or something so they can catch back up. And it may happen, because they are 3 wide up here. Look at Nathan Hudson. Hudson up there to the front of this group, now up into the 3rd position as Benny Watson takes the lead from Dylan Poteet. So Benny Watson right now is making a case for himself to make the Daytona 500. Hudson would be second. He'd be in. Schwallenberg would be in. Bob Jones would be in. Alex Tanker would be in, and the final transfer driver at the line that time would have been Marco Martinez, just barely beating out Kian Eddington and Richard Johnson. Comes Charles Sanford up the inside line, the 03 Remember, he's already locked in, but he wants to start on the outside of the front row for the Great American Race. And they almost, are they going to? Oh, Sanford almost went to the inside of Eddington, but he thought better of it. They almost went 4 wide. Those drivers at the rear of the field would have loved to have seen them wreck. Benny Watson playing some defense here against Nathan Hudson and Bob Jones and Dylan Schwallenberg. Kian Eddington's up there now. Richard Johnson's up in the transfer spot. On the outside looking in would be Alex Tanker in the 35. Watson, Hudson, Jones, Schwallenberg. And then Richard Johnson and Kian Eddington would be your 6 transfer drivers at this point. Still a long ways to go. 8 to go at the line. Bob Jones pushing Benny Watson out in front. Those two have an agenda to make the Great American Race. You got Nathan Hudson, Dylan Schwallenberg side by side back there. At the line this time, let's see who would be the transfer drivers this lap. Ian Siegel jumped up, I think. Oh, nope, wait a minute. Nope, they had to reform. Here we go. So we got Watson, Jones, Hudson, Schwallenberg. That remains the same. And Richard Johnson, Kian Eddington are still the final 2 transfer drivers. Let's jump back to that 07. Who right now is in the middle. And he's getting bypassed by Ian Siegel, Alex Tanker, John Arndt. So he just lost a ton of positions with that. I think Siegel would now... Oh, Richard Johnson's losing spots. Siegel and Jeffrey Finguy might be the 2 transfer drivers in 5th and 6th now when they cross the line. Let's see if that's the case. And yes, that is indeed confirmed. Richard Johnson just fell out of a transfer position. Now Finguy is the last car to transfer in at this point, but he's got Ben Braley and Philip Goldberg right in his back bumper, along with Kyle Matthews and Eric Burton. And Isaac Canepa, Aaron Henderson, Anthony McCurry, O'Neal Baldwin, all those drivers that had lost the draft, they're up here in the lead pack again now, with a little less than 6 to go. And Finguy works his way underneath of Ian Siegel. Philip Goldberg trying to do the same. That would move Siegel out, Goldberg in. At the line, Goldberg and Siegel, who got it? It was Siegel, just barely. And they're 3 wide behind him. Oh my goodness, they are getting racy again. Nathan Hudson, Bob Jones kicked up to the high side as Dylan Poteet goes for the lead. Off of Benny Watson. This is crazy racing, and they are swapping that transfer spot just about every corner. Nathan Hudson got back to the inside line now. He's going to try and push Dylan Poteet to the front. Hudson, I think, would gladly give Dylan Poteet the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500 as long as he qualifies into the Daytona 500 race. But he wants more. He's going for the lead. Who were the transfer drivers this time? They were Hudson, Benny Watson, Bob Jones, Dylan Schwallenberg, Jeffrey Finguy, and Philip Goldberg. That time beat Ian Siegel to the line, so that lap would have been the final transfer driver. Oh, they're going to go 3 wide for the lead here. Hudson. Oh, Jones. No. Jones, please stay behind the 6. Thank you. They thought about 4 wide. They thought about it. Hudson still side by side with Dylan Poteet. Philip Goldberg now up in a transfer spot. Eric Burton now is up there. So too is Richard Johnson, Marty Johnson, Kian Eddington. And now Goldberg to the inside for the top position. Oh, they may wreck here in the closing stages. They may. They are racing really hard. Here comes Richard Johnson for 2nd place off Eric Burton. They're both trying to qualify for the 500. At the line that last time by, it was Hudson, Goldberg, Burton, Johnson, Bob Jones, and Benny Watson. That were your top 6 to transfer in. But it's certainly going to change this time. There's no doubt about it. Coming to the stripe this time, there'll be 3 laps to go. Marco Martinez is now up in a transfer spot, along with Kian Eddington. It's now Goldberg, Johnson, Richard Johnson, that is, then Marty Johnson, then Kian Eddington, Marco Martinez, and Nathan Hudson. And Hudson's on the outside line continuing to free fall, as is Bob Jones, as is Benny Watson. We're getting new blood up here at the front. There's Anthony McCrory. Here comes Cody Lamas in the 13. Battle for the lead. Richard Johnson looking low. Goldberg throws the block. Who is going to make it? Who's going to get the final transfer spot? The 6th transfer spot. Goldberg continues to lead. 2 to go. Richard Johnson in command of 2nd. Kian Eddington 3rd. Then it's Cody Lamas. Final 2 transfer spots. McCrory and Eric Burton right now. This is going to get really tight, really fast. It almost sounded like someone was scraping doors with somebody else. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised. Cody Lamas now in command of 3rd place. Kian Eddington there in 4th. Richard Johnson right behind Philip Goldberg. You got to think those two are going to play defense against everybody else. White flag displayed, this time by. 1 more lap to go. Who at this time is in the race? Goldberg, Johnson, Lamas for sure. Final 3 transfer spots at the line would go to Eric Burton, O'Neal Baldwin, and Benny Watson. Philip Goldberg trying to start on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500 and make the Daytona 500. Cody Lamas side by side here with Richard Johnson. The two of them look like they're in a good spot to make it in. Look at Aaron Henderson back here. This is the battle for the transfer spot. Baldwin, Henderson, Burton, Bob Jones, Benny Watson in that, along with Dylan Schwallenberg and Zach Rogers. Sam Rogers. Who's gonna get it coming out to the stripe? Philip Goldberg wins. Cody Lamas transfers in. Coming to the line. Who is transferred into the 500? Waiting for official scoring. We have it. Goldberg wins the race. He transfers. Cody Lamas transfers. So does O'Neal Baldwin. Aaron Henderson's in, along with Bob Jones, and our pole sitter Sam Rogers gets the final transfer spot into the Great American Race. Richard Johnson just comes up short, as do Finn Guy, Benny Watson, Dylan Schwallenberg, John Art, and Kyle Matthews. Race is complete. Let's look for official confirmation. Goldberg will start on the outside of the front row for the Daytona 500. He transfers in with Cody Lamas, O'Neal Baldwin, Aaron Henderson, Bob Jones, and Sam Rogers. Man. Crazy, crazy races here. But man, were they exciting. So we now know our starting lineup for this season's Daytona 500. The qualifying for the Daytona 250 will be determined by where all the other drivers that did not qualify, where they finished these 2 Budweiser duels, which would mean that the pole sitter for the Budweiser duel for the Daytona 250 would be Johnny Gardner, and outside of the front row of him would be Richard Johnson in the 93. So that'll be your front row for the Daytona 250. Your front row for the Daytona 500 will be Ty Dent as the pole sitter and Philip Goldberg making his debut in Snickers Cup on the outside of the front row. Thank you all so much for watching these 2 Budweiser duels. Those were exciting races to watch and commentate. Man, I think I've lost my voice. I've commentated this plus the practice sessions and the qualifying speed sessions all in one sitting. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. The next things you will see here and are related will be the Daytona 250 50-lap event at Daytona, in which all the drivers that did not qualify for the Great American Race will take part in. And then after that, the big one, the Daytona 500, the 12th annual Daytona 500, a 100-lap event at Daytona International Speedway. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed these Budweiser duels. If you did, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to become part of the crew today. Oh boy, we got ourselves our 42 car field for the Great American Race. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time as you've been watching a production of the NNSCRA offline racing at its best. So long from Daytona.